making sure we're comparing the same type of metric across, from a media agency perspective, across your schedule. You want to have the Road 2.0 data for all of the sites. And I think the media owner sites who have got higher traffic counts look like those sites are reaching a lot more people because they're using older methodology and not actually stipulating this is Road 1.0, and they might as well write underneath that we refuse to use the new methodology that we're paying for. So I think there's a lot of players that need to make sure that they're doing the right things to move us all forward. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Beyond the Billboard. We are the first and only out-of-home podcast in South Africa. We release 2 episodes a month, and our episodes are announced on LinkedIn and are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube. So if you're not subscribed, please do so to make sure you don't miss any of our awesome episodes. The topic for today's episode is around measurement in out-of-home, and this is the first in a 3-part series where we're going to be inviting 3 different guests from the major measurement platforms available in South Africa currently. And the purpose of this series is really to shed some light on what options are available, what are the different methodologies, how do they differ, how are they similar, and really educational purposes. We speak so much about measurement in this podcast. It has come up in every single episode, and we really feel that it's our responsibility to bring those voices to the podcast, have these open discussions, and really understand what is behind each of these measurement platforms and why are they so important for our market. So that's the topic for today's episode. And for our first episode in the series, we welcome Trish Guilford to the podcast. Trish is the General Manager for the OMC, which is the Outdoor Measurement Council in South Africa. So Trish, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolute pleasure, and thank you for inviting me.
It's lovely to have you with us. And for anyone who's not aware, the OMC is the JIC, which is the Joint Industry Council for South Africa, and they use global best practice methodology of authenticated measurement. So we're so excited to get into the detail of the platform, what they offer, what they're all about. And to kick us in today's episode, I wonder, Trish, if you could share with us, what is the OMC, when and where did it begin, and importantly, where is it today?
Of course, no problem at all. So it's quite an amazing feat in terms of what the OMC has actually achieved. It started in 2012. It was really a situation where there was not enough information about out of home. In terms of, it was great. We had amps. You could find out how many people had seen a billboard. Wow. 98% of people came back and said, yes, I've seen a billboard, or I've seen a trailer, or I've seen a dustbin, or whatever the case may be. But we couldn't pinpoint what or where that specific structure was. So the necessity came from it when obviously we saw the AMP's demise. And then there was not going to be any kind of research at all, and specifically from an out-of-home perspective. So JC Decaux and Prime Media got together and started the ball rolling in terms of looking at how we could set up our own measurement from an out-of-home perspective. And yeah, it really then started from 2014. It really started to kind of come together. People were kind of chatting about it, realizing that there is something out there that would be able to give them the details of a specific billboard. And I think that's where the interest really went in. They obviously started looking at costs and things and brought on the likes of Outdoor Network and Outpost. So those are the 4 founding members from an OMC perspective. From 2014 through to 2018, they managed to do they did 2 or 3 sets of interim testing in terms of how to do. They needed some kind of information in terms of looking at demographics. How do they actually go about this? They went overseas and had a look at that time of what there was available, and came back with what was the best option in terms of costings, because it was being funded literally by the 4 media owners. And yeah, they got to that point, and they went with our previous partners, which was Coenda Infometrics, and that's where it started from. I joined in 2018 with my background in terms of being media strategist, and being in the industry and understanding both sides of the fence. 2017 was the first real proper good research that we got out of it. And we continued with Coenda, and then during COVID, we looked at the next step. So we did a lot of research, and that's when we moved over, and we bought on Ipsos, and that's where we are today. So it's been the most incredible journey in terms of a very short space of time, from a South African perspective in terms of out-of-home research.
If you were saying 2014, Trish, that's like over 10 years, it's 11 years. And from the first data release of around 2017, we're 2 years shy of that 10-year milestone.
I think it was great. It was a great starting point. And I think what we've got now, it was easy then in terms of understanding. I think where we are now is just light years away. And we have got the opportunity of giving such great detail from an out-of-home perspective. We can give you what your probable audience is going to be. It's not about an opportunity to see or a realistic opportunity to see, which is where we were. It's now, this is your probable audience. And obviously we've introduced, and everybody knows that the currency for out-of-home is now a VAC, or your visibility adjusted contact. And that information, which you put out into the industry, which we were also rah about, whatever, everyone's now going, oh my word, it's something new to learn, and oh my word, I think I actually want to learn it, because it seems so daunting. It really, really is rich information that is going to prove to your clients exactly how many people you're going to reach, whether it's on a static or on a digital billboard and things. So if they just take the time, and I think it's like anything else, about learning how to use it and how to interpret the data, they'll see the benefits of the data. And that's what's so important.
I also feel like it's also, you know, when it changed over, that was a bit of the apprehension. I think people got so comfortable with it before. I mean, I'm a use case of that. I mean, I was a super user of the tool,
Yes.
right? And you get so used to the data and the ways of working it, and people find comfort in that, you know, that comfortability in that area. But I think, you know, something to commend you on is that you have, once this change has been happening with Road 2.0 data, and we need to talk about the methodology next, but once you've done this changeover to Road 2.0, you have maintained trainings, and you've opened that up to the industry for people to attend them. I've attended them multiple times, maybe something, oh, I just wanted to learn a little bit more about, I would go back into training. So I think that's great, is that you've made those trainings accessible to the industry. So, but I do want to just talk about, before we get too far into this episode, because it's also an education episode, I'd really love us to take a step back and let's talk about, how is this data modeled? What is the methodology? What formats does it cover? You know, we're using this episode as if we're, you know, putting it forward to our listeners and our viewers so that they can have the understanding. So over to you, Trish, if you want to unpack that for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So the methodology is quite extensive, and I don't think it's really realized what does go into the methodology. So we start off by doing a travel survey, and that is done by our partner, which is Ask Africa. We did 15,000 interviews, face-to-face interviews. So there were 2 waves of 7,500 each wave, and it is face-to-face interviews of going in, and it literally takes an hour to an hour and a half of sitting down with somebody and saying, right, the last 7 days, where did you go to? And that's quite a difficult thing to actually remember, okay? Because we all know, okay, we leave home and we kind of go here, there, and everywhere, and then we come back. So, you know, left home, where did you go to? Oh, I went to gym. Okay, where? So they make sure that they either get a crossroads or a mall or a pinpoint of which they can go back and put a GPS coordinate to. Okay. Then they'll say, from there, where did you go to? Okay, I went to the office. Right, where's your office? And then from there, where did you go to? Oh, then I went here, and then I went there, and then I went back home. So we get an origin and you get a destination. That's all well and good. Okay, but then they turn around and say, but how did you travel? Because the majority of South Africans, we're not all that lucky in terms of climbing into our own cars and driving from point A to point B. So some people, a lot of people will catch 3 or 4 taxis. Some people will walk 2 kilometers to get to a taxi, or climb off a taxi and then still walk to get to their point, their place of work. So they take all that information and they plot it for each single person. Nobody is ever duplicated. So they make sure that the sample that we get, which is representative of the South African population, covers as many people as we need to be then to be representative. And what we did is, there's unfortunately no ways we can go into the rural areas. It's just really expensive to go into those areas. So we cover areas that have got population of 8,000 plus. So we call it peri-urban, and then obviously your urban. So that traffic or travel survey is really important, because from that we get origins, destinations, we get demographic information, we get the type of trip. So how did you go? Where did you go? Etc. We have also then collected a lot of information which will help with the next, we're calling them nodes that we'll come out with. So Road 2.0 is just based on roadside inventory. But we know where people are going in terms of shopping centers. We know where they're going in terms of transit, nodes, to the airports, to maybe to a train, etc., etc. So that is setting us up in terms of then rolling those next nodes out, which is really, really exciting. So the Ask Africa Travel Survey is critical in terms of giving us that base. We started off, as I said, with the 15,000. We obviously didn't do travel survey during COVID because nobody was traveling. And then we came back in and we said, you know what? We've got this really nice base of 15,000, but we don't have to do 15,000 every single year. And that is also based on global learnings. So we did 7,500. So we dropped it down by 7,500. And then we just did January to June. That was fantastic. We got more information just in terms of more trips, more different roads. And then from there, we decided that last year we wouldn't do a travel survey. So we didn't do one last year. But now our fiscal runs from July to June. This year we're going to. And now we're going to do 3,500. We're sitting with 71,000 people, individual, unique people as our sample, which is enormous.
Yeah.
And it therefore means that we don't have to go to that 15,000 every single year. We can bring it down. We understand that people are traveling differently. They travel differently all the time. But the base is really, really great. So we've got a really nice, solid base from a demographic perspective. We then take that information, okay, once it's been analyzed, and that gets sent through to our dear friends Ipsos, who are based in Prague, in Czech Republic, and they are the data scientists and the really, really clever people. Okay, so they take that information and they model it. We have modeled 2017 all the way through to 2024 data. They've modeled it together so that we get all those trips, all those respondents. They then look at the traffic intensity maps. So they will have to look at satellite information, and they take all of that, whatever they've got access to, and they then feed that in so that we can see, based on the roads, where people are actually going. Within that information, they have got how fast people are you traveling on that road, how far you can see that billboard. because your run-ups, they'll take that into account. They will take into account if there are other roads coming in between point A and point B. And they put all of that information into their systems, and that is where the magic really happens. We then get our media owners who become members. We overlay that with the inventory. And from there, we can say, okay, this demographic, this inventory, what is our probable audience going to be?
Thank you for sharing all of that. I know that there is quite a lot of modeling and layers and a lot of work that goes, behind creating the metrics and the measurement that we see. So I think that provides really good insight. And I think a key point that you said there, I just want to reiterate, is the satellite imagery, which gives that traffic density and the flow and the intensity. So I think that's a really important layer that gets added to that travel survey, as well as the inventory that gets layered onto that. But something key for this metric modeling is, and it is a model that's used globally for a lot of measurements, is the visibility cone or zone. And
Yes.
a lot of people understand it still from the previous road, we will call it road original data, to where we are in 2.0, but the VAX is a little bit more of a double click into that. So I think maybe if you want to explain that visibility cone or zone and how we move from the opportunities to see into what is actually the metric that's currently being used now.
Every single billboard that gets uploaded, and I'm going to just say billboard because at the moment that's where we are, okay, in terms of roadside. Every billboard, based on the size of the billboard and the height above the ground, okay, gives something called that visibility cone, okay, or zone of visibility. So if I am a billboard and I put my hands out to 45 degrees, okay, with between my hands, anybody that goes between that space has got the good old opportunity to see. Okay. It doesn't matter which way you are actually facing. You could turn around and have a look and you would be able to see me. That's fantastic. And I think that what we mustn't ever, ever forget is that out of home is a mass media. Okay. So it's from one to many, right? And I think that we must always remember that. So, yes, we're giving you a better indication of who probably sees it. Okay. Remember that you've still got the opportunity to see many. Okay. And I think that's also where people kind of go, oh my gosh. Okay. But why aren't we seeing this? Okay. So if that's my cone of visibility, within that, there are people walking, there are cars driving. Okay. And what the system does is it takes out those people and those cars that are not facing me, that are not moving in the direction to me. Okay. And it narrows it down. So what happens is that your probability or your visibility adjusted contact means that you are going in the correct direction, that you are going to face me. You are probably going to see me. In fact, you are going to see me. We can even go to that point and say, no, it's not necessarily probably, it is that you are going to see me. And that is what the visibility adjusted cone is. So it takes away, if we want to call the noise around the outside of that billboard.
Part of this modeling to establish this visibility cone or visibility zone also takes into account like fixed obstructions that obstruct the view. Right.
Absolutely.
So like if it is a building, or I know trees are very difficult because they continue to grow. So that's something that's a different thing. But those fixed obstructions get taken into account. So if you had a building that blocked a portion of that view of that billboard, it means your visibility conal zone is now smaller in a way.
Prime Media Out of Home puts your brand front and center wherever your consumer lives, works, travels, and shops. From eye-catching billboards and digital screens to high-traffic taxi ranks, buzzing malls, and right inside the store, we connect you to your audience at every stage of their journey. Awareness, consideration, purchase, we're there. We don't just place your brand, we amplify it, elevate it, drive it forward, outdoor, rank, mall, in-store, nationwide. Prime Media Out of Home, powering brand presence across South Africa.
Oh, while we're just busy chatting here, I think I've got two thoughts that are so strong that I actually just want to share them. Is that, the journey of where the measurement is sitting currently and the introduction of the vax, and Trish, thank you to you for the explanation of that. I think it's really critical that people understand what is the vac and where does it come from and why. I think, people like Chris and myself and other people who are in the industry before there was anything like the OMC, and then the introduction of the OMC with the first methodology and the first partners, and now Road 2.0 where we are, has seen this evolution. And I think for, some of the reasons you've explained, there've been changes in partners and that type of thing. And I think that it has been good for the industry to end up in a point where we are at the global best practice at this point, using global methodology to align with VAX. We all want to align with what the WHOs of the world are doing, the World of Out of Home Organization, to make sure that we're following the best standards to set our industry up in the best way for growth. I do know that, putting a media owner hat on now, there was such frustration around the change in the methodology. And if you're brand new to the industry and you arrive today, you would never hear about the first version of Road. You would know that Road 2.0 is the version. You would never have used the previous system. When you're using the system, you would use IDS. So the brand new people are kind of a clean slate, and they see the information that we have today and the methodology today. I think where some of the friction comes in is that, specifically from the media owner side, and even I've had this on the client side, is that a specific site had a measurement value before, and then there's been this change, and now the site that maybe the client has booked or the agency has put forward or the media owner has put forward to the agency, it used to have 1 million kind of opportunities to see a month. Now that same site on the same road with no changes has gone down to 200,000. So the media owners feel like, wow, that was like a site that had a huge reach. The client was happy to book it. And then when they say we want to renew, and the agency, okay, just so you know, there's been a change in methodology. This is the new one. Some clients are like, that doesn't make sense. That makes it look like it's not a good site, is some of the feedback I've had from clients. So, I obviously would then, in my personal capacity, take the approach to explain the reason for the change, explain the different methodology and why. But Trish, I wonder if you could just kind of share some information as why did some of the figures from before change so drastically? How can the industry understand it? I think from where I stand is that I kind of wish I was a brand new person that didn't have to think of the previous process, because I think there was so much work done to get the buy-in to the methodology, and everyone was in and everyone's paid and everyone's like, perfect. Okay. The media owner's happy, agency happy, client happy. Then when there's a change, everyone's, as you've mentioned, sometimes it's like, whoa, I don't want to learn a new system. Now there's a new term for it. It's too much friction. And then what we don't want is clients or agencies turning from out of home because the measurement's too complex to figure out. Just put it into TV and, let's get the campaign live. So I would just love to get your thoughts on that.
So we had the quantum. When I joined the OMC, we had quantum, and there were all these wonderful big figures and things of, 35 million opportunities to see, or whatever the case may be, along, Winnie Mandela. And everyone said, geez, but there's no ways that you could have that. It's too high. So we've flipped over, and now people are saying, hang on a minute, why has this only got 25,000? Okay, to your point. There's something called the capacity of a road. Okay, which, when we look back, the first system that we had didn't take into account the actual physical number of cars that were possible to go on a road. Okay, so it was, okay, you went from A to B, and it was, they had formulas and things, so nobody's trashing anybody. They used their formulas, and that's great. But the number of cars on the road would never, ever have ever got up to those specific numbers. A 10-lane highway, okay, in Brazil couldn't have got to most of the figures that we had here in South Africa. And
interesting.
Yeah, hell of an interesting. And that is the one thing that we learned from Ipsos is that, guys, a road has only got so much capacity. And once you've reached that capacity, that is it. You can't put any more people on that road. It's impossible. So I think that was one of our biggest learnings in terms of where we were and where we are now. And once people understand that and they say, yeah, okay, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. It's the same as a traffic count, okay? Is that all you're doing is you're counting traffic. So I think that what we do, and in terms of where we're coming from, is that the visibility adjusted contact, taking into account that only those people that are facing us, okay, only those people that can see us within that zone. Yeah, it makes a hell of a lot more sense to say that's the smaller number, and that's why you've got a smaller number. But we have to educate the market. And we have tried to do that as best as we possibly can. And that's why we do the education in terms of I train on the IMS system with all the media owners, and we train on the IDS system. So there's the two softwares with everybody's, the media agencies, the media owners, clients, anybody can have access to that free of charge. And it's about when we're training to explain that. But if people don't ask the question, and that's another thing, people need to contact us. People can just drop me an email and say, Trish, can you explain this? We will gladly explain it. Very happy to do training sessions with whoever. Very happy to go and do a presentation in terms of, guys, this is where we were and this is where we are now.
Yeah.
And it's the same with on a static billboard, okay, versus a digital billboard. In the system, on the IDS system that we work with, which is your inventory delivery system, it is set at your digital billboards as a 5-second ad in a 60-second slot. Okay. Why? Well, it just means that it doesn't matter which media owner you're looking at, you're comparing apples with apples. Now, if we want to change that to, and there's discussions at the moment because people are saying, why is it 5 seconds in a 60?
Yeah, I was going to say, there's no 5-second roadside slot. So, yeah, okay, please continue.
Yeah, but because it was it's an international thing. Internationally, that's what they do. We can change it, and we've had these conversations with the media owners, and I've put it out to them to say, well, what do you want us to change it to? A 10-second day in a six ad loop, or a 15-second day in a 12 ad loop. It doesn't matter, but everybody needs to be compared with likes, right? To be able to make those comparisons.
I love that you've gone to the difference between digital and static, because it was on what our questions to ask you for today's episode, because I think it's important. And something that you finished saying there, which I think is also really important, is people need to understand what the OMC measurement is about and what the VAC is. If you're sitting at an agency, the onus is on you as the person putting together the out-of-home plan to understand that. If you don't want to understand that the system has changed, or you're not interested, unfortunately, that's part of your job now. So everybody, the onus is on everybody, myself included when I'm working on my client work. You need to understand what the new methodology is. You cannot be hanging on to whatever the old methodology is. That's just not the way that the industry is moving. So it's almost to forget what was before, and you need to understand that this is the new way forward. So the clients, they hire media agencies and specialists to work with them because they want somebody to distill all of the information and relay it to them in a way that is understandable, and that they can ask the questions and say, why is this and why did that change? So the onus is on the media agency to understand it properly, and also to be interrogating the information received from the media owners. The media owners have their own responsibilities to ensure that they're using the correct information. But as I don't want to use the word gatekeeper. I more mean as the central point where you're collating from 10 different media owners the information. And Kirst, you and I have both seen this. You can ask the media owners for their rate cards, which you get sent. And then if you know all of them are with OMC, all of the information is very different. Some of them are using Road 2.0, and it's very clearly stated Road 2.0 4 weeks, and the information for the VAC is giving, or for a month. Some don't even say anything. They just say OMC and there's your number. It's up to you to imagine if it is the old version or the new version. And I think that there are a lot of people who are happily playing in that gray, right? The agencies are not asking, hold on, why does this site have 8 million and one of your other ones doesn't have? that high of a number, or which road are you using? I'm not saying that road wouldn't show a high figure. I'm just saying that there's no gatekeeping happening. And I think that that is where some of the frustration on all parties, as I mentioned in the intro, like measurement has come up in every episode. The clients are frustrated and interested and not interested. The agency is the same, the media owners the same. And I think that the purpose of the series is really for us to try and distill some of that, to say the media owners should be stating very clearly on the rate cards, Road 2.0 monthly VAC. That's what we want to see. And they can include other metrics too, whichever other metrics they want to include on there. I know some media owners do include a reach and a frequency and those type of things. But I think we want to all be making sure we're comparing the same type of metric across, from a media agency perspective, across your schedule. You want to have the Road 2.0 data for all of the sites. And I think the media owner sites who have got higher traffic counts look like those sites are reaching a lot more people because they're using older methodology and not actually stipulating this is Road 1.0, and they might as well write underneath that, we refuse to use the new methodology that we're paying for. So I think, there's a lot of players that need to make sure that they're doing the right things to move us all forward. Because I don't know if you want to build on that. I know you've also had some of that kind of first-hand experience and feedback from seeing what is available or what is being shared in the market.
Obviously, the higher the number, they would prefer to include that to try and sell their sites. And I understand that, but exactly what you're saying now is the frustration comes down onto the agency person and then ultimately onto the client, when it's like trying to compare apples with apples, and you can't, because people are including older data versus new data. And I think for me, and Trish probably will confirm this, but like, this is the new data. The old data no longer exists. It's not available on IDS. You can't do runs against it. Obviously the travel survey has been layered. It's been from all those years ago, but the actual metric and the output and the measurements, it's the new data, and that's the system we're working with. And just to note, the IDS system that Trish was speaking about, as she said, is available for free of charge through the industry. Obviously, you need to get approval to utilize it through OMC. As far as I know, but I mean, that is the data that's in the system. So I completely agree with Liv. The frustration is coming across to agency people. So I think, one, I agree, agency people need to take the initiative to attend the trainings and understand the new measurement and understand the new methodology, because it is your job to be the expert in that field and in the different measurements for the different platforms. But two, I think there are responsibilities of the media owners who are paying to be members of OMC are including the latest, correct, accurate information on.
Absolutely, 100%. It's an ongoing battle, and it is a battle. We are unfortunately not able to police every single proposal that goes out. Obviously, we've given everybody the members get the access, and in fact, it's so easy that once the media owner has done a proposal for a media agency or a client, you can share that campaign in the system. They don't even have to do anything. And what can happen then is that the media agency just pulls those campaigns together, and you can select which frames you want. So we've made life as simple as possible. And there shouldn't be any queries about where does this actually come from. If the media owner is a OMC member, okay, and please, it is not expensive for those guys to come through and become members. As I sit here today, I think we've now got 60 members on board, okay, which is fantastic. The VAX, what has been approved by the OMC board, as this is going to be the currency for OMC in South Africa. And it is global standard.
It almost needs to be like an agreement in the industry that if you're including VAX on your proposals or your marketing sheets, that it should just be about all adults, and all adults, all ages, and you're just doing, that's your 4-week VAX for that, because that could also change a lot of things now that I'm thinking about it, is if somebody was adding, a media owner goes, okay, well, my site's in a higher income area, I want to do a VAC on my proposal that's aligned to that. Like, maybe there needs to be an agreement. Also avoid that confusion and that ambiguity.
It would be great if there wasn't so much mystery. And again, this is that gray area I spoke around what the figure you're seeing actually relates to. So to your point, it should state there, the monthly VAC, all adults, Road 2.0. For anybody who's listening on the media owner side who is not currently a member of the OMC, how do they become a member? Could you give us, I know you've mentioned it's not expensive, but if you're looking at a media owner who maybe had 10 sites, as an example, could you give us a rough guidance? Sometimes, some of the smaller media owners are hesitant to even make contact, thinking, well, it's going to be in the hundreds of thousands, and that's definitely not in my budget. Everyone's got different ideas of what might be affordable for them, and also what to do if they'd like to kind of reach out or they'd like to get in touch. How can they do so?
Absolutely. So everybody can just drop me an email. Or drop me an email via our website. So it's a tiered structure in terms of costing. So it's from 1 to 20 billboards and 21 to 75 billboards, etc., etc. What that tier actually means is just an Ipsos. The cost is broken down into two. There's an Ipsos cost, which is literally just being able to create your profile up onto the system. They will upload your inventory for you. They double check your inventory, and it's the use of obviously all the data behind it. The OMC cost is a flat, if they join this fiscal, it's a flat 800 Rand per frame for the year. Okay, so if you've got 10 billboards, it's 800 Rand multiplied by 10, so there's 8,000, and your level would be 5,000 Rand for your Ipsos cost. So it really is affordable. It's not expensive in the greater scheme of things. We relooked at a while ago, and we've made it affordable for the smaller guys to come on board. As I say, that would be your fee for the entire year. And with that, you get your access to your softwares, and you get all the training as many times as you want to come on the training courses. And we will set up one-on-one trainings with companies as well. So yeah, it's great. I mean, the next level, if you were sitting with 30 billboards, your Ipsos cost goes up to 9,000 Rand.
Thank you for sharing that information around the costing for media owners to come on board. I've got one last quick question for those that want to access the system. Can they also just reach out to you to find out how to access the software and the tool and be able to use that, obviously free of charge?
Absolutely. No problem at all. Just drop me an email.
Perfect. I think we've had such an incredible conversation today. We've spoken about the methodology. We've spoken about where OMC came from to now, where Road has come from as a data to now. And it's been really fantastic having you with us to talk about this. I think, as Liv said in the beginning in her intro, measurement has come up in nearly every single episode. It is such a critical piece to out of home and moving the industry forward and increasing our portion of spend as a medium within the industry. So I'm so excited for this series. I know this is a critical first episode that we've had today. And Trish, we just want to say thank you so much for joining us. And we hope that you've enjoyed it as much as we have.
Been fantastic. It's lovely to chat to you, ladies. And yes, anytime. Very happy to answer any more questions and things, because there's a hell of a lot that we can continue to talk about.
Thanks for joining us today to go beyond the billboard. Subscribe to our podcast to ensure you don't miss out on our exciting content.
Join us again to go beyond the billboard.
1